Inversions are an interesting part of the practice in that sense that they can really have that tendency to really lure our ego in. I get really excited. We're like, oh, I want this pretty picture, I want this pretty pose, I want to be able to do it. But the reality is that the essence of the inversions are really about detaching ourselves from that outcome. And what you'll find is that as soon as you can detach yourself from the outcome, the pose actually gets a lot easier. It's like all of a sudden you have fun with it, and all of a sudden you enjoy it, and all of a sudden the process of getting there is actually interesting and entertaining and fun. And so in order to really cultivate the essence of the inversions, for me, what the inversions are about is that ability to really let go of the end point and just get caught up in the practice, right? Wherever you're at. To be able to detach from that and be okay with it. And one of the beauties of doing inversions is that as a byproduct, they really force us to be present in it. It's really difficult to be up in an inversion, a handstand, especially, right, and not be present. Like we can get good at headstand eventually, and we can kind of zone out a little bit there. We have to stay somewhat present, but we can zone out. And so for me, from my perspective, it's really the only purpose for the advanced postures. They don't give us superpowers. Like they don't make us fly, they don't make us better people when we leave here. Especially if we're an asshole in the middle of class to ourselves, right? When we beat ourselves up. So when we come into this, the process and the advanced poses are really just about testing that ability to stay present and unattached to the outcome. It's not about the posture. It doesn't really matter at all. So just be okay with that. At this point in the practice, it's usually kind of the mind starts to come into play and we start to kind of beat ourselves up or get really excited. You know, so just notice that that's part of it. Now, when we come into forearm balance, there's a couple of things that tend to happen most commonly. One is these people, right? The archy back people, sway back people, the really flexible people that are like, when are we going to do back bends? Right? We have those people. Then we have the people who are really strong in the shoulders and tighter in the shoulders and have a harder time getting into this just by finding the opening in the shoulders. So we're going to look at variations for both of those, and they'll actually be similar. So the setup in this spot will be exactly the same. It's just going to be a difference of what you pay attention to. So with the archy back people, the big thing in order to control that is my core. So I have to be able to think about the front of my ribs and the front of my pelvis knitting toward each other. And for those of you who have that, your core work, you're going to actually feel this more than everyone else. But everyone, when we're up there, once you get everything set up and you're in forearm balance and everything's aligned, for most of us, the core will actually be the thing that we feel first. You know, once you have the strength to get up there and you're there, this is going to be what's really controlling the center point of the pose to maneuver it. So what we're going to do to exaggerate that is you're going to start to, you'll have your partner spotting you, so you have your heels pressing into their hands. You could take clasped hands, you could take them separate, but when, what we're going to do is come on up, and, oh now I'm uphill. What I'm going to do is come on up and push into my partner. Then I'm going to lift my head up and start to look toward my belly button, and it's going to force my belly to start to kick in there. Now I keep pushing up into my feet to do that. And that's all I have to do. So I'm going to lift my head off the ground, away from the ground, and look to my belly button. Okay? That's you with the archy back to help you engage the core. Once you get that and you feel the core kick in, you can look back down again, but you want to keep this engaged. So just exaggerate it to feel the engagement, and then we can shift the gaze back down. The different drishtis here are just different gazes. It's easier when I start looking down at the ground, because I have a lot of my balance in the inner ear, in the vision, so to have that focal point, to have the head more level, it'll be easier to balance. Once I get more comfortable with this pose, or if I have a spotter, dropping the head can be a little bit more challenging variation. It's a nice one to be able to either, one, relax the neck and drop the head, or two, engage the core, look at the belly button. Now, for those of you with tight shoulders, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start here in my forearm down dog, and I'm going to come forward for a moment and just start to soften here a little bit so my shoulder blades come back. So I kind of melt the heart, and I'm going to keep my shoulder blades back and press back and try to exaggerate it so that my chest comes toward my feet here. So I'm leaning back this way rather than coming into my forearm balance right away. So I stretch out the shoulders and I exaggerate it. Okay, so I'm getting that stretch, and what I'm thinking about, even though I'm retracting the shoulder blades, I'm thinking about the skin of my outer armpit stretching. So that eventually when I get upside down, I have a straight line here. That's what we're going for. Okay, this is what tends to happen with the people with tight shoulders. They come in, they set up, and they've got it muscled like they're holding on, right? We want to straighten that out and push into the elbows in order to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, I'll stretch the chest, melt the heart, stretch the chest, so I feel what that feels like. I want to take that position when I get upside down eventually. Then I'll hug the shoulders back in again and come back up. My partner will grab my heels so that then I can push into my elbows and lift up and try and stretch the skin of those outer armpits there. So it's the exact same thing. The only difference is the shoulder people are pushing the floor away to lengthen here, and the core people are tucking the chin to look at the core. Okay, and the shoulder people get that little extra moment of setup of stretching the chest before they come up. Because you want to feel what that feels like rather than closing off here. You see the closed position in the shoulders? I'll close it off for a second, but then I'll open it back up when I get up there. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, shoulder people, stretch the outer armpits. Chest people, look at your belly button. Everyone though, you're squatting by grabbing the heels and pushing your heels into your partner.